Margaret Chen's hands trembled as she stared at the ultrasound photo tucked beneath her keyboard, the only proof of the baby she'd lost 3 months ago. The miscarriage had shattered more than her heart. It had revealed the true nature of the man she'd planned to marry. "Maybe it's for the best," Richard had said coldly, adjusting his Armani tie. A baby would have complicated things. That night, she'd thrown his engagement ring back at him and walked away from their penthouse life forever. Now, standing in the gleaming lobby of Chen Industries at 6 a.m., Margaret pulled her blazer tighter and forced herself to breathe. The company her grandfather built from nothing had become her refuge, the only place where she still felt whole. As CEO, she commanded respect from boardrooms to Wall Street, but behind her perfectly composed exterior lay a woman drowning in loneliness. The elevator doors opened to reveal Marcus Williams, the night janitor, pushing his cart with quiet efficiency. Most executives walked past him as if he were invisible, but Margaret had always noticed the way he worked. Methodical, thorough, taking pride in every spotless surface. What struck her most was his smile, genuine and warm, a rare commodity in her world of calculated expressions and hidden agendas. "Good morning, Miss Chen," Marcus said, his voice carrying a gentle Alabama drawl that reminded her of summer evenings and front porch conversations she'd never experienced. "Good morning, Marcus." She paused, studying his weathered hands that spoke of decades of honest work. Something about his presence calmed a storm inside her chest. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but you're here every morning before dawn. Don't you ever get tired?" Marcus chuckled, a sound like distant thunder. "Tired? Maybe, but this job feeds my family and puts my daughter through nursing school. Plus, I get to see the sunrise from the 42nd floor every day. Not many folks get a view like that." His eyes crinkled with contentment that made Margaret's chest ache with envy. Over the following weeks, their morning encounters became the highlight of Margaret's increasingly isolated existence. While her assistant fielded calls from suitors interested in her fortune and business connections, Margaret found herself looking forward to conversations with the one man who asked for nothing. "You know," Marcus said one morning, carefully wiping down the marble reception desk, "my late wife always said the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they give. You remind me of her, strong on the outside, but I can see the kindness in your eyes." Margaret's throat tightened. When was the last time someone had seen past her armor? "Your wife sounds wonderful." "She was. Lost her to cancer 5 years ago." Marcus's voice carried grief worn smooth by time. "But she taught me something precious. Love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections fit perfectly with yours." That afternoon, Margaret's mother called with her weekly lecture about marriage and grandchildren. "That investment banker, David Morrison, is quite interested in meeting you. His family owns half of Connecticut, and he specifically requested a Mom, please." Margaret rubbed her temples as she watched Marcus through her office window, quietly tending to the plants in the lobby. "I'm not a business merger, darling. At 35, you can't afford to be romantic. You need security, stability. I need to go." Margaret hung up, her heart hammering against her ribs. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday morning. Margaret arrived to find Marcus sitting on the lobby bench, his head in his hands. His uniform was torn, and she could see purple bruises blooming along his jaw. "Marcus, what happened?" He looked up, embarrassment flooding his gentle features. "My daughter sir is in the hospital, appendicitis, but they want money up front for the surgery, and I tried to get an advance from the temp agency, but they said." His voice cracked. "I don't know what to do." Without hesitation, Margaret pulled out her phone. "What hospital?" "Miss Chen, I can't ask you Tawa. You didn't ask. I'm offering." Within minutes, she'd arranged for Sir's surgery and the best private room available. "Consider it an early Christmas bonus." Marcus stared at her with tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "Why would you do this for us?" Margaret's carefully constructed walls crumbled. "Because you're the only person in my life who sees me, not my bank account, because your daughter deserves to live her dreams, because," she took a shaky breath, "because kindness is the only thing that makes any of this worthwhile." 3 days later, Margaret visited Sarah in the hospital. The young woman, a mirror image of her father's gentle spirit, squeezed Margaret's hand with tears of gratitude. "Thank you for saving my life," Sarah whispered. "Dad talks about you all the time. He says you're the strongest woman he's ever met." As Margaret walked toward the elevator, she overheard Marcus talking to his daughter. "She's special, baby girl, the kind of woman who uses her power to lift others up, not tear them down." That evening, Margaret made a decision that surprised even herself. She found Marcus in the parking garage, loading his supplies into an old pickup truck held together by power and determination. "Marcus," she called out, her heart pounding like a teenager with her first crush. He turned, and the sight of his gentle smile nearly undid her resolve. "Miss Chen, shouldn't you be heading home to that fancy penthouse?" Margaret stepped closer, her hands trembling with nervous energy. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something." She took a deep breath that felt like jumping off a cliff. "Would you marry me?" The wrench in Marcus's hand clattered to the concrete floor. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "I'm sorry. Did you just—" "I know how it sounds," Margaret rushed on, words tumbling over each other. "I know you probably think I'm crazy or having some kind of breakdown, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You're the only person who makes me want to be better, who sees past all the money and power to something worth loving." Marcus studied her face with the intensity of a man solving the world's greatest puzzle. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Miss Chen, Margareta, you're one of the finest women I've ever known, but you don't want to marry me." Margaret's heart stuttered. "Why not?" "Because you deserve someone who can give you the world, not a man whose greatest treasure is a 20-year-old pickup truck and a daughter in nursing school. Don't you understand?" Margaret stepped close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "You already gave me the world. You gave me hope when I thought I'd lost it forever. You showed me what real love looks like, not the kind that comes with conditions and contracts, but the kind that exists simply because someone chooses to care." Marcus reached up to gently cup her face, his calloused thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. "Are you sure, Margaret? Once we do this, there's no going back to separate worlds." Margaret leaned into his touch, feeling more at home than she had in years. "I'm counting on it." 6 months later, Margaret Chen Williams stood in the garden behind the house they'd bought together, not a mansion, but a cozy home with enough space for Sarah to visit and perhaps someday, a nursery. She watched Marcus teaching neighborhood children how to tend the vegetable garden he'd planted, his laughter mixing with theirs in the golden afternoon light. Her phone buzzed with a text from her former fiancé. Copyright Richard, heard about your marriage. Hope you're happy with your charity case. Margaret smiled and deleted the message without responding. She'd learned that real wealth wasn't measured in stock portfolios or property deeds, but in the quiet moments when someone chose to love you not for what you could give them, but for who you were when everything else was stripped away. As Marcus looked up and caught her watching him, his face breaking into that smile that had captured her heart, Margaret knew she'd found something rarer than any fortuna, a love built on the foundation of two imperfect people choosing each other every single day.